Martin O'Malley. Welcome to Let's Talk.
Great to be with you, Denise.
Thank you, thank you. Before we get into the topic, what do you think about that 25-hour speech that was given on the House Senate floor by Senator Cory Booker?
Yeah, it was awesome. We all need to stand up, and I think Cory Booker gave people a lot of hope, because as we've watched our members of Congress kind of I don't know what the word is, kind of reeling from this onslaught of every day flooding the zone with all sorts of things that this administration is doing, illegal, unconstitutional, untoward, cruel-hearted. You name the adjective, there's a lot. And so I think the public's had a hard time seeing any sort of focusing on a moment of opposition. They thought one was coming with the shutdown of the government and that sort of duel. But when they saw Senator Booker do that for 25 hours, I think it resonated when the words that he said, look, none of us can do everything, but each of us can do something. And that's what it takes. There's going to be all over the country this Saturday, a national day of action, 800 different events happening all over the United States to protect Social Security, Medicare, and other institutions of the republic that this Doge team, the unelected co-president Elon Musk and Donald Trump, are trying to dismantle. So I myself will be at the rally site here at the headquarters of Social Security in Baltimore, Maryland, land of the free, home of the brave. But there's 800 events happening all over the country. And that's what we need to do. The only thing that can save us right now until the next election, if we're allowed to have one of those again, is really the democracy rising up. Democrats and Republicans alike, 80% of us believe that Social Security should be strengthened and made better, not destroyed and dismantled. And that's what they're trying to do to it right now.
So you sounded like you were getting ready to quote my dad. The only thing we can do, or the only people who can save us for us is us, was a term that he used to use a lot. And as a former administrator of Social Security, I'm in that age group, Mr. O'Malley, where a lot of us are now finally getting our Social Security benefits. Speaking of my dad, he used to always say, especially when it came to Black men, that they never lived old enough to get Social Security. He finally made that age. He died at age 67. But now there's this constant threat. Where are we? Tell us the reality, or give us a reality check of what's happening with Social Security right now.
Well, let me try to encapsulate it, because there's a lot just in your intro. I was in Pine Ridge Indian Reservation as the Commissioner of Social Security a few months ago. And a woman at the tribal consult that we were having there said, do you know what the life expectancy is for men on Pine Ridge? And I said, yes, 42. It was 42 in 1968 when Bobby Kennedy visited Pine Ridge. So it is true that there are, if you're lucky enough, if you've earned the benefit of Social Security and you live to 62, we've made a promise across the generations that it's going to be there for you. But that promise is very much threatened right now. There are two things that people frequently hear about Social Security. One is that if Congress doesn't make an adjustment by 2035, Social Security is going to go bankrupt and insolvent. That's not true. It wasn't true before Elon Musk and Donald Trump started telling even bigger lies about it. But what is true is that periodically Social Security, with its 75-year forecast, Congress has to make an adjustment to make sure that it's there as the demographics change. And right now, the baby boomer bubble that's coming through is one of those changes they anticipated in 1982. And so they built up a big surplus reserve of $2.7 trillion. I'll come back to that in a second. Okay. It is from that reserve that periodically the difference between what people pay in a given year and what Social Security pays out, it's from that reserve that difference is taken. So last year, Denise, Americans that are working in the economy paid in $1.3 trillion, and that immediately went out to pay $1.4 trillion in benefits, with the difference taken from that built up surplus reserve. But what we're talking about here, and what's the real present and danger to Social Security right now, is not that slow diminishment of that reserve and how we, bolster it for another 75 years. That too is a solvable problem. But right now, what's happening is that Elon Musk and Doge, at a very vulnerable time in this agency's history, when its staffing has already been reduced to a 50-year low, while baby boomers of my generation swell their ranks to an all-time high. Elon Musk and his Doge team, with their chainsaw, have been gutting this agency in a merciless, cruel, brutal way, and they are driving people out of the agency. These folks that hung in there because they believe in the mission of care and compassion for one another, taking care of people in their golden years, as well as people, if God forbid, they become disabled and can't work. But they are actually, with our money, paying people across the country in Social Security offices to leave right now, and don't let the door hit your backside on your way out. It is an appalling waste of money. Some people that are already retirement eligible, they'll say, get out right now and we'll pay you for the whole rest of the year. So this is doing a number of things to the agency very, very quickly. And this is what I shared with Congress, with Hakeem Jeffries and the Steering and Policy Committee earlier this week. Because of the largest reduction in staff that this agency has ever suffered in such a short period of time.
So,
You're going to see several things happen on its way to total system collapse and an interruption of benefits.
so
One,
go
go ahead.
ahead. Go ahead. I think, no, I was going to ask, I think, because one, we've talked about the closing of Social Security offices. Now we're talking about how people will have to certify, I guess, that they're actually eligible for. What are some of the things that everyday folks are really going to? I mean, we
Yeah,
feel
it's
we feel for the loss of jobs, but then people don't really talk about that until it hits them.
right.
What's going to hit those Social Security eligible folks out there that makes them say, "Oh, he was right."
Yeah, in the interruption of benefits. So this is an agency that is all people serving people, of the people, by the people, for the people, and it's enabled by an IT system. Think of it like a big insurance company that pays out monthly benefits to 73 million people, including some of the poorest of the poor in the United States of America who are on SSI. So it's not just about the jobs, and my heart goes out to those folks that hung in there. Denise, they didn't miss a single beat all through COVID,
Yeah,
even
right.
with the
You're right.
evacuation. They kept the checks going out. So this is what the public is going to see. But when President Biden asked me to go there, it wasn't because the agency was doing well. It was because of, after 10 years of staffing reductions imposed by House Republicans, their staffing was at a 50-year low, and therefore every service delivery, whether it was when you apply for your retirement, the wait time that takes, time to get an appointment, time to get an initial disability determination, time to have an SSI redetermination, any time to change your direct deposit account if somebody hacks it and steals it. All of those things were taking longer and longer and longer and longer because there were fewer and fewer and fewer people, and Congress wasn't investing in the IT systems. Well, now they've taken a sledgehammer to this camel's back. We got all of those things moving in a better direction by the end of President Biden's term, some of them the best they've been in 10 years. But now what you're seeing is this mass exodus of employees all of a sudden means that all of those wait times are spiking. Now you're seeing, just today, I got a call saying the entire system for SSI went totally out, total outage on any ability to process SSI claims. And that's a dynamic system. How much people earn in any given year, not going over the maximum amount, which can send you off a cliff. So people are going to see those wait times continue to skyrocket. They're going to see outages, interruptions that happen more frequently and for a longer duration. And ultimately, all of that will cascade into a total system collapse, I believe, within the next 60 days, that will lead to the interruption of benefits for the first time in 90 years. And
So
so that's what people are going to see.
what is it? What is it? And I think we all sat there in shock with our, our mouths dropped open when Elon Musk made the statement that Social Security is one of the biggest Ponzi schemes in America, and that there are these people who are 100, 200 years old that are still getting Social Security benefits. Can you set the record straight on that?
Yeah, there's a lot of big lies told, and why the reason they're telling these lies is to turn the public against Social Security and undermine the trust that people should rightly have in Social Security. So there is no zombie apocalypse. Totally not true. Uh, when we thought we had knocked him into the laughing corner on the assertion that there are people 150 years old because the Doge kids were reading the wrong field in the computers that they didn't have any right to be in. Uh, we thought that that was the end of that big lie, but then Donald Trump 3 days later in the State of the Union said, no, there's not only tens of millions of people that are 150 years old, some of them are 300 years old, which means, Denise, they would have been here for the founding of Jamestown. Totally untrue. There is no zombie apocalypse. Social Security is automatically notified by the vital records in every state in America and the territories. Whenever there's a death certificate, that automatically goes to Social Security. Additionally, if somebody's over the age of 70 and they stop billing Medicare, boom, that automatically gets a flag on it, and Social Security is notified. Not to mention millions of us every year who call Social Security when a loved one dies and lets Social Security know, because Americans are mostly honest. So that's not true. The other thing that's not true is it is not a pyramid scheme or a Ponzi scheme. And if it were, it wouldn't have existed for 90 years, because those things tend to collapse as swindle schemes will. Now, this is a pay-as-you-go system. Money's paid in every year. That money goes out in the same year. And we calculate all of your earnings throughout your lifetime to make sure your benefit is the one you've paid in to earn at the time you retire. So it is a pay-as-you-go system. Every year, it gets the top sterling audit. This year's auditors are Ernst & Young. They rotate their auditors every 3 or 4 years. It was Grant Thornton. Now it's Ernst & Young. And unlike the Defense Department, Ernst & Young looks at Social Security and says, yes, you're doing a good job. You all count money very, very well. And in fact, you have an error rate that is less than 1%. So all of that stuff and turning off ways that we had created for people to do their business, like address changes or other things online, is all about degrading the customer service to sour enough of the public against the agency. So that's why they're cramming field offices. That's why they're making it harder for you to get your business done. And all of it is about wrecking the agency so then they can rob it. They can't rob it until they wreck it. And they have to wreck it to turn enough of the public against it so that then when they, having created an emergency of their own making by breaking the agency, they say, oh, it's an emergency. We've got to take that 2.7 trillion in the trust fund. We'll give you all a little bit of lump sum so you can adjust. But you know, it was always going bankrupt. It was always fraudulent and it never worked. So that's their game. And we have to wake up the democracy because there's a burglar with a chainsaw coming through the window in the middle of the night. Turn on your lights, wake the neighbors, call 911.
So, in your opinion, like you said, Mr. O'Malley, you'll be out on Saturday with thousands of people across the country who'll be expressing their frustration, concern, and anger about what's happening. What else can people do? What should American workers do to protect Social Security?
Yeah, what they should, there is nothing more important than calling your congresspeople right now, whether whether you vote for them or not. You might live in an area that's represented by a Republican member of Congress, 2 Republican senators. All the better, because they need to see that the interest in this issue is continuing to rise. In a private meeting, there was an article in a magazine that covers the Hill, and the headline of that was, Republican senators behind closed doors want Elon Musk to shut up about Social Security. So the most important thing we can do is to send the message to members of Congress every week that you want them to stand up and stop Elon Musk from stealing your Social Security benefit. You've earned it, it's yours, and you want your senators and congresspeople to stand up. The other really important thing you can do is to be engaged online with your neighbors that you talk to on Facebook. I know for some of us it's hard because, sometimes talking about politics, you're always surprised when you find, oh my gosh, I thought I knew that man or woman. I can't believe they're for Donald Trump. But you need to be engaged on this issue. 80% of people, regardless of their party affiliation, want Social Security to be made stronger. So be engaged online and knock down those false claims that are being made about Social Security. I'm ramping up my efforts. Hopefully, soon here, I'll have a website that goes through the refutation, the facts, the truth that allows people to combat those big lies. But engage with your neighbors. Let them know this is a real threat. This is not a scare tactic here. They are driving this agency right into a ditch. They want to drive it into a customer service collapse. They need to wreck it so they can rob it. And in the meantime, they want to turn people against it by kneecapping its ability to serve the public. So be engaged, call your members of Congress, and talk to your neighbors and encourage them to call their members of Congress to tell them to stop the steal of your Social Security benefits. You earned it. You need it. It's yours.
As a former administrator, and you were there for what, a year, two?
I was there for a year, and it was a remarkable turnaround year. I was so proud of what those men and women did in making things better, even after 10 years of staffing reductions.
And that was the question I was going to ask when you talk about making things better, because none of our systems are probably running 100%, but we still need them, right? So what initiative did you bring into the fore to make it better? And what do you think, if we were to fix Social Security, there could be a focus on that as opposed to destroying the institution?
Yeah, well, this could be a whole nother interview. There was a great article by Eric Wagner, Eric with an H, Wagner, when I left the agency, that talked about the things we did. In essence, Denise, we applied a system of performance management and a regular cadence of collaboration that focused on the outputs rather than the inputs. A lot of times when we talk about government, we talk about annual budget inputs, but we brought people together in a collaborative way every 2 weeks, to focus on our 8 biggest problems. The time it takes for initial disability determination, the time it took to answer the phone on the 1-800 number. We got that speed to answer down from 42 minutes at the beginning of the year down to 12.4 minutes by the time October came around. And it was no one thing. It was 100 different actions on the front end, on the back end, that each of the components of that agency took in a regular every 2-week cadence. One of the things that we got down was at the beginning of the year, it took 405 days for an administrative law judge decision. If you appeal your disability ruling, took 405 days at the beginning of the year, but we got that down to 280 days. That was the first time that had been accomplished in 25 years. The percentage of people that had their retirements effectuated within the 2-week period of time after applying, we got that up to 87% within 2 weeks. And that's the first time they'd achieved that in 10 years. So these are some of the things we did. You ask, what is the major fix that Congress could apply? It's to let this agency operate, again, at a 1.2% overhead, which they did for decades until about 10 years ago, when House Republicans started ratcheting down. And so now they're trying to operate on about 0.7% overhead. So if you compare the overhead that they used to be able to be allowed to operate, and by the way, it's the dollars you and I paid in that they're allowed to use so people can access their benefits. For decades, it was 1.2%. That makes them the most efficient insurance company in the world. If you compare it to private insurance companies, Allstate operates at 19% overhead. Social Security, 1.2%. Liberty Mutual operates at 23% overhead. Liberty Biberty, 23% overhead compared to Social Security at 1.2%. So if Congress would just allow them to operate at an adequate level of staffing to serve the people that call on the phone and come in, that would be one big piece. The other thing that Congress could do is put an adequate number, puts in some money for IT modernization. It wouldn't break the bank. Just let them do it. They're not on these taping together these old systems and making them run because they're stupid or because they're old-fashioned. Far from it. They haven't been able to update and modernize because every year Congress makes them absorb another $600 million in cuts. And how do they absorb that? in an agency
Interesting.
that's all staffing and systems. They do that by letting the Grim Reaper wipe out enough staff positions through attrition and retirement. And they do that by postponing modernization efforts that they knew that they could and that they should. So those are the two ways. It's a solvable problem, just
So
like
as
financial health of the agency's benefits.
as we wind down, as former governor of Maryland, and I'm just curious about, the conversations, if any, you've had with Governor Moore, and just what you see the landscape looking like as for Marylanders. I mean, as you know, I have a lot of staff members that work in Maryland, and it's. I know you're on a national sort of campaign here to talk about saving Social Security, but what about what's happening in the state? What would you tell Marylanders and the governor if you've talked to him about what they need to do?
Yeah, I would. I'd be glad to talk to the governor or his staff about any of this. I'm sure as they wrestle with their budget, they're also wrestling with the forecast of a major hit to Maryland's economy that's going to ripple through. Where Social Security is concerned, the second biggest employer in the Baltimore metro area after only Johns Hopkins. You look at the numbers of people that will lose their jobs there, but it's not just them. It's also the contractors. It's the people that do the work that makes it possible for that agency to run. It's the families that then will not have paychecks to pay and to buy things in the local economy. So
Right.
this is going to be a big hit to this meat cleaver, this chainsaw that's being taken to the federal government is going to have a real big impact on Maryland. And I'd be glad to talk to the governor or his staff about it. I'm sure they're on top of it and have a lot of other people to talk to. There's a rule in Baptist church that once a pastor moves on, there's a no meddling rule. So there's a.
I get it.
I've come to understand that there's a similar rule regarding Democratic governors in the state of Maryland.
I got it. I got it. Well, I want to thank you so much, former Governor O'Malley, for being with us today and for really sounding the alarm on Social Security. It's something that we expect, although I have 30-something, almost a 40-year-old son who is basically assuming that, that opportunity won't be available to them.
No, that's what
And
we used to say. That's what I used to say
yeah,
in college, but it's there.
yeah,
I'm 62. I could apply
okay.
now if Elon Musk doesn't kill it. Yeah, it's going to be there. Tell your son there's no reason except Elon Musk that Social Security shouldn't be there for him.
Well, I'm sure a lot of listeners out there are similarly situated, so I'm glad you said that so that they can tell their sons and daughters the same thing. Thank you so much for being with us today. We really appreciate you highlighting this issue and giving us a call to action. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Denise. Great being with you. We'll
All
see you.
righty. Take care.
Bye.